Summer's here, and if you love old mansions, American history, and are looking to spice up your travel itinerary, then boy do we have a video for you. Welcome to Schmancy, the place where we talk all things rich, exclusive, and fancy schmancy. Today we are heading straight for the presidential homes, where we'll not only take a fascinating journey through America's past, but also peer into the lives of some of the nation's most prominent former leaders. From grand parlors to extensive libraries, these mansions will harbor a wealth of information about each president, as well as come with their very own story. If you're done with those crowded beaches, the typical tourist traps, or the ho-hum resorts, then the residence of a president might be the perfect thing for you. We have a lot to get to today. So without any further delay, here are our top 10 must-see presidential mansions. They say Virginia is the mother of presidents, as it is the birthplace of 8 unique US presidents. What this means for you, is that we have 6 unique mansions to take you through, all in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So on this video, we're going to be spending a good amount of time in Virginia, listing them all in one swoop. With that said, let's get started with number 1. George Washington's estate, Mount Vernon. Located in Fairfax County, Virginia, on the banks of the beautiful Potomac River, it is only a few miles south of DC and Alexandria. And more than 2 centuries later, it is still the hottest real estate in town. Originally built in 1734 as a modest colonial home by George's father, Mount Vernon is the OG of presidential mansions. When the tall, rich and fashionable Washington inherited it, he happily expanded it several times over, until it became the mega Palladian mansion that you see today. From multiple land purchases, to extra additions, extensive renovations, and facelifts, Washington was an ambitious real estate investor and a landowner, who made sure he kept up with the latest housing trends. We're really not sure how he managed it all between fighting wars, running a plantation, presiding over a nation, being a celebrity socialite, among many other things. As for the slavery issue, it seems George and Martha were quite behind the times on that one. Mount Vernon was home to hundreds of enslaved people who toiled around the clock, all the while keeping George and Martha's plantation running smoothly. Not cool at all. However, the tour guides and historians at Mount Vernon do a good job at educating the public on the harsh realities of those times. Today, Mount Vernon is owned and maintained by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, a private organization who saved George Washington's estate from ruins, in 1858. You are welcome to partake in the guided tours of the mansion, pay homage at Washington's tomb and the slave memorial, explore the vast landscape, museum and library, tour the farm distillery and slave quarters, or just spend time gazing at the beautiful Potomac River from the home's iconic back porch. Since there's so much to see and do here, we highly recommend you reserve the entire day, or come back the next day for more. And what if you happen to live in the area? Well, annual membership with unlimited admission is the only option for you. That way when friends ask, "Where are you going?" you can just tell them, "I'm off to George's house." Our next stop is going to be Charlottesville, a small city nestled in the rolling hills of Virginia, that's central to not 1, but 2 presidential estates. And if you're going to be in town for more than a day, it would be a crime to visit one and not the other. In other words, we highly suggest that you make these 2 estates a package deal. The first of these is Monticello. Located in southeast Charlottesville, this UNESCO World Heritage Site was the brainchild of Thomas Jefferson, the multitasking 3rd President of the United States. Construction on the 5,000-acre plot began in 1768, and simply never ended. Being the spendaholic that he was, Jefferson made countless updates to the home as he became more exposed to European architecture, while he served as Secretary of State and Ambassador to France. The end result is Jefferson's own unique style, a mixture of neoclassical, Palladian, and American. Now as for the elephant in the room. Yes, Monticello was a plantation and home to hundreds of enslaved people. Yet again, we have another founding father who was not immune to the practices of their time. If you're planning a visit to Monticello, prepare to spend the entire day, as the place is quite massive, with much to do and learn. You have a plethora of information-packed tours to choose from, with guides who are quite skilled at shining light on the parts of this plantation's history that are the most uncomfortable. In addition to the mansion, Jefferson's estate also boasts a multitude of fruit and vegetable gardens, flower gardens, recreated slave quarters, the Jefferson family cemetery, slave burial grounds, nature trails, and gorgeous panoramic views of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the city below. Now, if you're a die-hard Jefferson fan, you might also want to stop by the University of Virginia to have a look around its campus. You'll find it on the other side of Charlottesville, with its academical village getting all the attention. As it happens to be another UNESCO World Heritage Site designed by Jefferson, the university usually offers guided tours when class is in session. Only a tad further south is the other presidential estate in Charlottesville. This is James Monroe's Highland. Constructed in 1793, the fifth President of the United States and his family lived on this less elaborate plantation from 1799 through 1825. It was Monroe's good friend Thomas Jefferson who encouraged him to purchase the property right next door to his Monticello. Monroe decided to only purchase a mere 1,000 acres. He would later purchase even more land, and at the most, it became 3,500 acres. Plagued by mounting debt, he was forced to sell Highland in 1825, and the property changed hands many times until 1974 when it was willed to the College of William and Mary, and became an official museum. Open year-round, you can visit Highland to walk the serene landscape, tour the presidential guest house, and learn more about Monroe, his family, and the enslaved people who lived there. Sadly, the original plantation home burned down in 1829, and today its guest house is the only structure on the property that once belonged to Monroe. Number 4. Montpelier. Further up the road from Charlottesville, you will find James and Dolly Madison's 2,650-acre plantation, nestled in the hills of Orange County. Built in stages and set on a vast clearing, Montpelier got its start in 1723 when James Madison's grandfather Ambrose acquired the property, and built a modest frame house for the family. The final touches to the property were implemented by the fourth president himself, James Madison, in 1812, when he used his love of European architecture to actualize this grand neoclassical and Georgian-style mansion that we now see today. After James's death, his widow Dolly moved to D.C. and sold the property. Montpelier changed multiple hands over the years. It was eventually acquired by members of the DuPont family in 1901, and after the death of Marion DuPont in 1983, the estate was bequeathed to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Today, after a massive renovation project, the home is open to visitors year-round, where they offer guided indoor-outdoor tours that go in depth about the history of the home, the Madison family, the enslaved community, and James's role in the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. You can also attend several exhibitions throughout the year, take part in many hands-on activities, visit the numerous graves on site, host your own private event, walk the trails, or just explore the gardens and the nearby forest. We've now arrived at Charles City, Virginia, another one of those cities that come with a package deal. And located along the banks of the James River, Charles City comes with a selection of 2 presidential mansions. The first of these is Berkeley Plantation, the birthplace of Benjamin Harrison V, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and one of the early governors of Virginia. His son, William Henry Harrison, grew up to become the 9th U.S. president, and died after only 32 days in office, making him the president with the shortest tenure in U.S. history. However, William Henry Harrison's grandson, Benjamin Harrison, would later become the 23rd U.S. president. And would you know it? Abraham Lincoln was also related to the Harrisons, as well as Elvis Presley. Lots of big-name politicians and entertainers in this family. Moreover, Berkeley Plantation claims to be the site of the nation's very first Thanksgiving, which took place in 1619. We're not quite sure how that sits with the folks from Plymouth, Massachusetts. But for this video's sake, we won't argue. The centerpiece of this hilltop estate overlooking the James River is its Georgian-style mansion that was constructed in 1726 by the Harrison family patriarch Benjamin Harrison IV. Much of the plantation's grandeur at the time was the product of enslaved laborers who worked the tobacco fields, tended to the house, and cared for the Harrison children. The plantation went bankrupt by the mid-1800s, was seized by a local creditor, and later fell into disrepair. In 1907, it was purchased by the Jameson family, who meticulously restored everything to a once again livable and stately home, and in the 1960s, it became a museum. Today, Berkeley Plantation welcomes visitors from all over the world to tour its interiors and explore the beautiful grounds. In 2018, it became the set for the movie Harriet. The reconstructed slave quarters from the movie were left intact, and you can learn more about them and the enslaved people of Berkeley Plantation upon your visit. Our other Charles City stop is Sherwood Forest Plantation, on the north bank of the James River. This grand Georgian-style home on 25 acres is our last stop in Virginia, and was the final home of President John Tyler, the 10th President of the United States. Built in 1730, the same property was briefly owned by President William Henry Harrison in the years between 1790 and 1793. After changing several hands, the plantation was acquired by Harrison's successor John Tyler in 1842. He lived there with his family in the years after leaving office, until his death. This same home is known to be haunted by a mysterious grey lady on a rocking chair. And for over 200 years, residents of this old colonial mansion have all encountered her. The property today is currently owned by President Tyler's descendants, and they have restored the house and grounds based on old records describing the decor, furnishings, and landscape. It's quite beautiful both inside and out, and guided tours of the mansion are offered by appointment only. Reservations can be made by visiting the property's website. The grounds, on the other hand, are open daily for self-guided tours, at a small fee. Number 7. Peacefield. We've finally left Virginia, and set on a lush 13-acre park in Quincy, Massachusetts, is this historical gem that served as the cherished country home of founding father John Adams, including John Quincy Adams. John and Abigail Adams purchased the property in 1787 as a very simple home on 75 acres. They named it Peacefield to symbolize John's desire for peace after serving in the American Revolution. Not quite as wealthy as those of the Virginia gentry, it was all John could afford at the time. But over the years, as his income increased, and with Abigail's supervision, the couple greatly expanded the house into a beautiful Georgian mansion. John Quincy Adams inherited the home after his father's death, and made his own renovations and additions to the property. Further down the line, his son Charles Francis Adams updated the garden to the English gentleman's garden that we see today, and also constructed the fireproof stone library, as per his father's will. The library is home to over 14,000 books owned by generations of the Adams family. In 1927, after the death of Brooks Adams, the property became a museum, and in 1946 was incorporated into the National Park Service. Today, being only a hop, skip and a jump from Boston, Peacefield welcomes thousands of visitors year-round, offering a unique opportunity to tour the stately mansion, with its beautifully preserved rooms. There are also orchards, a greenhouse, a carriage house, the stone library, as well as 2 older and smaller houses. John Adams was one of the few founding fathers who did not own any slaves, as the Adams family strongly opposed the institution. Since they were never plantation owners, you will not find any slave quarters on the premises. Number 8. The Hermitage. This stately 1,120-acre estate in Tennessee was once home to the 7th U.S. President, Andrew Jackson. Initially built in 1819, the Greek Revival mansion underwent several expansions and modifications over the years, and the end result is this distinctive columned porch, and some of the most ornate interiors we've seen in presidential homes. Unlike any of his aristocratic predecessors, Andrew Jackson was born into extreme poverty. But in time, he became one of the largest landowners in Tennessee, as well as one of the most controversial of presidents, due to his ruthless ideologies, his contradictions, and a quick temper. Let's just say he was a most troublesome character, whose former practices have now put his spot on the $20 bill in jeopardy. Jackson and his wife Rachel lived at the Hermitage for most of their married life. However, Rachel died a sudden and early death prior to Andrew's presidency, leaving him to share the mansion and run the family plantation with his son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren. It was a cotton plantation that fell into ruins after Jackson's death, in the years after the Civil War. The Ladies' Hermitage Association came to the estate's rescue in 1889. And shortly after that, it became a public museum. Owned and managed by the Andrew Jackson Association today, the property includes the main mansion, several outbuildings, gardens, and the Jackson family cemetery. Only 12 miles east of downtown Nashville, the Hermitage offers guided tours of the mansion, exhibits on Andrew Jackson's life and presidency, educational programs, and interactive displays on the enslaved people who lived and worked there. Number 9. The Woodrow Wilson House. This Georgian Revival mansion in the Kalorama section of Washington, D.C., was the residence of the 28th U.S. President, Woodrow Wilson, and his wife Edith, after he left office. Built in 1915, the Wilsons purchased the home in 1921. They lived there until President Wilson's death in 1924. It was from this very balcony that he addressed a crowd on his last public appearance. Edith Wilson lived there until her death in 1961, and bequeathed the property to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The house is now a museum that explores the life and times and political career of Woodrow Wilson. It houses a collection of over 8,000 artifacts, including original furnishings, personal belongings, photographs, documents, and gifts received during Wilson's presidency. The house hosts a variety of public programs, educational programs, and special events. It also features a beautiful garden that has been restored to the design the Wilsons enjoyed when they lived there. If you are a major fan of Woodrow Wilson, know that his birthplace and boyhood home in Stanton, Virginia is also a museum, and only a 2.5-hour drive from Washington, D.C. And last but not least, we have number 10. Wheatland. This historic property in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, was the home of James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States. As the only president to never marry, he purchased the 22-acre estate in 1848, spent his presidential years at the White House, then later returned to it after his term ended in 1861, and lived there until his death in 1868. The federal-style Wheatland was never a plantation. Simply a beloved home he enjoyed on his own, or with his guests. The 17-room mansion currently sits on 11 acres, together with Lancaster History's Research Center, and the Tanger Arboretum. Today, Wheatland serves as a museum and a historic site, operated by Lancaster History. The property features beautifully landscaped gardens, outbuildings, and a carriage house. Inside, you'll find perfectly restored rooms containing period pieces, books, and artwork that once belonged to the president. Visitors can take guided tours of the house, and participate in various educational programs about President Buchanan, and his role leading up to the Civil War. And that's it for the top 10 must-see presidential mansions. So, which of these estates did you like the most? Which ones are you looking forward to visiting? Yes, we know, there are quite a few that we didn't mention today. It simply means you will just have to be patient, and stay tuned for a part 2 to this video. Anyway, if there's anything else you would like to mention about this topic, feel free to share it with us in the comments below. Furthermore, if you got any value out of this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon so you never miss out on another video. With that said, we'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see each other next time.